Bernard had always been a quiet, gentle man. Even in his youth, he had never raised his voice at anyone, not even when life bent him under its harsh weight. His wife Ethel often joked that he was soft as warm bread, and Bernard would smile shyly, accepting it as a compliment. They had lived simple, hard-working lives, too poor to build a luxurious home but rich in kindness, dignity, and love. When they grew old and their health declined, their son Aaron insisted they move in with him. "You shouldn't live alone anymore," he said at the time. "You're both old. Come, stay with me. I'll look after you." Bernard and Ethel had believed him for 4 years. They tried to adjust to the rhythms of Aaron's modern house, fast, loud, filled with screens and devices they didn't understand. Bernard walked slowly, using his wooden cane, while Ethel moved with the stiffness of age. They tried not to be burdensome. They stayed mostly in their small upstairs room, cleaned quietly, and kept to their routine. But Aaron changed gradually. He grew impatient, irritated, and cold. The man they had raised with kindness became someone they no longer recognized. He complained about the smallest things, the sound of Bernard's cane on the floor, Ethel humming in the kitchen, their early waking hours. Still, Bernard and Ethel endured, because love for a child is a strange kind of loyalty, one that persists even when cracked. One ordinary evening, something extraordinary happened. Aaron came home from work with a mood as dark as a storm cloud. He dropped his keys loudly, kicked off his shoes, and marched into the living room where Bernard sat folding a few old scarves Ethel had washed. "Dad," Aaron said sharply, "we need to talk." Bernard lifted his head slowly, the way old men do when every movement requires effort. "Yes, son." Ethel paused in the hallway, heart tightening. She sensed something coming but stayed silent. Aaron crossed his arms. "I need space. Both of you. You're too much for me." Bernard blinked. "Too much? You heard me?" Aaron snapped. "I want my own life. I want to live alone. You two need to stop depending on me. You need to leave." Ethel's breath caught. "Leave? But where will we go, Aaron? We have no income except our small pension, and that's not my problem." Aaron cut her off. "I'm tired. I'm stressed. I can't keep babysitting you two." The word babysitting broke something inside Bernard. His voice trembled. "Son, we never wanted to be a burden. We stayed in our room most days. We tried." "I don't care," Aaron shouted. "I want you out. Tomorrow morning?" The room fell silent, cold, heavy, unforgiving. Bernard felt his chest tighten, not from anger, but from heartbreak. The cane slipped a little in his trembling hands. He looked at his son, his only child. The boy he had carried on his shoulders, the boy he had fed and clothed and loved. "Is this what we are to you now?" Bernard whispered. "An inconvenience." Aaron didn't respond. He simply walked away, slamming his bedroom door. Ethel rushed toward Bernard, tears streaking her wrinkled cheeks. "Bernard, what will we do?" Bernard tried to breathe evenly. "We will figure something out, dear." But inside, he felt hollow. That night, they didn't sleep. They sat side by side on the edge of their small bed, holding hands like frightened children. Bernard looked at the photographs on the wall, their wedding picture, Aaron's school awards, family trips, memories, all now overshadowed by a single cruel moment. Ethel whispered, "Why, Bernard? Why did he do this to us?" And Bernard had no answer. At dawn, they packed what little they had, some clothes, medicines, Bernard's cane, Ethel's treasured prayer book. Aaron didn't even come out to say goodbye. Bernard looked at the house one last time. Once, it had felt like a shelter. Now, it felt like a cold reminder that love could be thrown away like old shoes. When they stepped out into the early morning air, Bernard felt the weight of his age heavier than ever. His legs trembled, and his knees threatened to give way. But he kept walking, because what else could he do? They reached a nearby bench and sat down, the air cold against their fragile bones. Ethel cried silently, her head resting against Bernard's shoulder. "Bernard, where will we go?" And for the first time in his life, Bernard felt helpless. But deep inside him, something stirred. A quiet ember, a soft spark of anger. Not loud, not violent, but steady. If life had taken everything from him, maybe it was time to fight back. And that was the beginning of Bernard's revenge. Bernard and Ethel sat on the cold wooden bench for hours, the morning sun slowly warming their frail bodies. People walked past without sparing them a glance. To the world, they were just two old, souls tired, forgotten, insignificant. Bernard looked at his trembling hands resting over his cane. Ethel's voice broke the silence. "Bernard, I can't believe our own son did this. After everything." Bernard stared ahead. His face looked calm, but deep behind his eyes, something hard and quiet was beginning to grow. "We will survive," he said softly. "We always have." Ethel leaned into him, but fear still trembled in her voice. "But how? We have no home, no family, no one." Bernard closed his eyes. "Then we must become our own strength." It wasn't anger that drove him, it was dignity. A quiet man's dignity, the kind that grows stronger when everything else is taken away. By afternoon, Ethel's legs ached, and Bernard's back throbbed. He stood slowly, leaning on his cane. "Come, dear," he said. "Let's walk. We can't stay here forever." They moved carefully, step by step, along the road. Cars passed, children played, life continued. Then a voice called behind them, Excuse me, sir, ma'am. They turned to see a middle-aged woman stepping out of a small bakery. Her face was warm, her eyes soft. She carried a tray of bread and pastries. You look exhausted, she said gently. Please, have something to eat. Ethel's eyes filled with tears. Oh, no, we cannot take, please, the woman insisted. My name is Mrs. Rohan, I own this bakery, and no one leaves my place hungry. Bernard nodded gratefully. Thank you, ma'am. They sat inside the bakery, warmed by the gentle heat of ovens and the smell of freshly baked bread. Mrs. Rowan brought them sandwiches, hot tea, and sweet rolls. Where do you live? She asked kindly. Bernard hesitated. We don't have a home anymore. Mrs. Rowan didn't pry, but she looked at them with deep compassion. I see. She disappeared for a moment, returning with a piece of paper and a pen. There's a small guest room behind my bakery. It's simple but clean. You can stay there for a few days, till you figure things out. Ethel gasped softly. You would do that for strangers. Mrs. Rowan smiled. My parents were old too. If someone had thrown them out, I would pray a stranger would help. Bernard lowered his head, deeply moved. Thank you, truly. The guest room was small but comforting. 2 single beds, a tiny window, a table with a lamp. Bernard and Ethel sat down, overwhelmed with relief. For the first time since leaving Aaron's home, Ethel smiled a little. This woman, she is like an angel. Bernard nodded. There are still good people in this world. But then his face hardened slightly. And there are those who forget what love means. Ethel looked at him. Bernard, what are you thinking? Bernard took a deep breath. I have been thinking. Our son threw us out, because we were a burden. A pause. Then let him see what happens when you throw away the very hands that raised you. Ethel blinked. Revenge, Bernard. Not revenge in anger, Bernard said. Revenge in truth, in justice, in letting him face what he deserves. Ethel leaned forward. But how? We are old. Weak old does not mean powerless, Bernard whispered. Bernard opened the small wooden box he always kept in his bag. Inside were old papers browned by time, edges curled. Ethel blinked. Bernard, are those? Yes, Bernard said. The property papers. Years ago, Bernard had owned a piece of fertile land, small but valuable. He had transferred it temporarily to Aaron years ago so that he could apply for a government loan. Do you remember? Bernard whispered. That the land is still legally mine? We never changed the ownership back, Ethel gasped. Yes, I remember. Bernard nodded firmly. Aaron thinks he owns everything, but he owns nothing legally. Not the land, not the house built on it. Ethel stared in disbelief. Bernard, you mean, yes, Bernard said slowly, feeling a rare fire rise inside him. I can reclaim it, and when I do, Aaron will learn what it means to throw away his parents. For the first time since Aaron threw them out, Bernard's heart didn't feel helpless. It felt strong, purposeful, and quietly angry. Mrs. Rowan helped Bernard contact an old lawyer, Holden, who remembered Bernard from years ago. When Bernard explained what happened, the lawyer's jaw tightened. Your son did what, at your age? Bernard lowered his head. Yes, Mr. Holden leaned forward. You have every legal right to reclaim your land. And because your son built his house on your property, the law is on your side. Ethel covered her mouth in shock. Bernard's voice trembled, but not with fear this time, with strength. Help me, sir, he said. Help me stand again. The lawyer put a firm hand on Bernard's shoulder. I will. That night, Bernard sat awake while Ethel slept peacefully beside him. He looked at the gentle folds of her face, the silver strands of her hair. She had spent her whole life loving her son, but Aaron had repaid that love with cruelty. Bernard clenched the papers in his hand. This is not for hatred, he whispered into the dim room. This is for justice. This was the moment Bernard's revenge truly began, not with shouting, not with violence, but with dignity strong enough to shake the world of the arrogant. Their son would soon discover that the old parents he threw away were not powerless. They were not done yet. The next morning dawned with a quiet calm that felt different, not peaceful, but determined. Bernard dressed slowly, his frail hands folding the shirt buttons with careful precision. Ethel watched him from her bed. You look stronger today, she whispered. Bernard gave a small smile. Maybe I finally feel strong, Ethel. She nodded, pride shimmering softly in her old eyes. Then let us see this through together. They walked out of the bakery room and into the crisp morning air. Mrs. Rowan was already arranging fresh bread on the shelves. Heading out early, she asked. Bernard nodded. I have an old matter to resolve. Mrs. Rowan smiled knowingly. Then go with courage. You're not as alone as you think. Her words warmed Bernard's chest. It had been years and someone had reminded him he mattered. Bernard and Ethel arrived at the lawyer's office, where Mr. Holden was waiting. Good news, he said immediately, shuffling papers. Your land documents are valid. Your signature, your deed, everything is legally yours. Bernard exhaled, relief flooding him. There is one thing, Holden continued. Because your son built his house on your land without legal transfer, the law gives you full authority over it. Ethel blinked, stunned. Full authority. Yes, the lawyer replied. You can reclaim the land, and by extension, reclaim or evict anyone living on the house built atop it. Bernard tightened his fingers around the cane. Aaron's words from that night echoed painfully. I want space. You two need to leave. I want to live alone. Now the universe had offered Bernard a way to return that cruelty not in bitterness. But in truth, what do I need to do? Bernard asked. Mr. Heldon smiled. Sign here. Bernard's hand trembled as he signed. Not from weakness, but from the weight of justice. This will take a few days, the lawyer said. But legally, you are about to become the owner again. For the first time, Bernard didn't feel helpless. He felt in control. Aaron lounged on his sofa, scrolling through social media, completely unaware of the storm gathering over him. The house felt emptier, quieter, without the soft footsteps of his parents. Without Ethel's gentle humming or Bernard's slow cane taps, he thought he would enjoy the peace. But after 2 days, the silence felt strange, uncomfortable, hollow. Yet his pride didn't let him care. They'll find somewhere. He muttered to himself. They're adults. Even if old. But at night, he dreamed of his father's face, hurt, confused, heartbroken. He would wake up sweating, irritated, and angry at himself for feeling guilty. He refused to message them, refused to check on them, refused to care. Arrogance can blind even the educated. On the 4th day, while Aaron was eating lunch, someone knocked loudly at his door. He opened it to see a man in formal uniform holding an envelope. Are you Aaron Bennett? The man asked. Yes, this is a legal notice. Signature, please. Aaron frowned but signed lazily, then closed the door. He ripped open the envelope. The moment he read the first line, his hands froze. Notice of land ownership and reclamation to current resident of property built on plot number 27. Legal owner Bernard Bennett. His mind went blank. What the? He read again, slower. The notice explained that the land legally belonged to Bernard and always had. Since the land was not transferred legally, Aaron had no right to the house built on it. Then the final line hit hardest. You are hereby informed that you must vacate the property within 30 days. The paper shook in Aaron's trembling hands. What is this nonsense? He shouted into the empty room. He grabbed his phone and called Bernard immediately. Bernard was sitting with Ethel on a bench outside the bakery, watching pigeons scatter crumbs. His phone rang. The name flashing on the screen, Aaron's son Ethel, looked at Bernard anxiously. Are you going to answer? Bernard nodded calmly and put the call on speaker. Dad. Aaron's voice cracked with anger. What is this legal notice? What have you done? Bernard's voice was quiet. I reclaimed what was mine. You can't do that. This is my house. No, Bernard said softly. It is a house built on our land. The land your mother and I earned. The land you threw away, just like you threw us away. Aaron froze. He was breathing heavily, chest tight with panic. Your old dad. You don't understand the consequences. Bernard replied, his tone a gentle blade. No, son, you do not understand consequences. Ethel squeezed Bernard's hand, tears in her eyes not from sadness, but from pride. Aaron tried to soften. Dad, I was stressed that day. I didn't mean you meant it, Bernard said calmly. You told us to leave. Now, it is your turn. Aaron choked on his words. Dad, please. I'm sorry. Bernard inhaled deeply. We are old, Aaron, but we are not weak, and we are not disposable. Then he ended the call. Aaron stared at his phone screen, devastated. His arrogance had boomeranged back with full force. Back in the bakery room, Bernard lay awake again, but this time with a strange peace inside him. Ethel whispered, Bernard, do you think he learned his lesson? Bernard looked at the ceiling. He is only beginning to learn. The quiet revenge he set in motion was not meant to destroy their son, but to wake him, to break his pride, to make him understand the value of those who raised him. Little did Bernard know, the 30 days passed faster than Aaron expected. Every morning he woke up with a knot in his stomach, anxiety chewing through his nerves. He tried everything, calling lawyers, asking friends, even begging the neighbors for advice. But every path led to the same truth. The land belonged to Bernard, legally, completely, undeniably, and without the land, his house, his pride, his space, meant nothing. Aaron walked through each room with heavy steps, suddenly seeing the walls differently. Everything he once flaunted felt fragile now, temporary, unprotected. He had thrown his parents out without thinking. Now he tasted the fear of losing everything. On the morning of the 30th day, another envelope slipped under Aaron's door. He opened it with shaky fingers. You are required to vacate the property within 48 hours. Bernard Bennett, just a simple line. Not cruel, not emotional, just firm. Aaron sank onto the floor, tears stinging his eyes. He finally understood what Bernard must have felt that night, the helplessness, the shock, the heartbreak. He whispered into the empty room. Dad, I'm sorry, but apologies spoken to walls are often too late. 2 days later, Bernard and Ethel, accompanied by Mr. Heldon, arrived outside the house. Aaron was standing there with 2 suitcases at his feet, his shoulders slumped. His eyes were red. He looked smaller, younger, almost like the boy he had once been. When he saw his parents, he took a deep, shaky breath. Dad, Mom? Bernard didn't speak. He simply watched him. Aaron swallowed hard. I'm ready to leave. Bernard nodded once. Aaron hesitated, then stepped closer. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, he whispered, but I want to say it anyway. I'm sorry. For everything. Silence. Ethel's eyes filled with tears. She stepped forward, the mother inside her unable to ignore her child's pain. Why did you treat us like that? she asked, voice trembling. He looked away, ashamed. I thought I needed freedom. I thought taking care of old parents would trap me, and I pushed you out because I was selfish. Bernard finally spoke, voice steady. And what did freedom give you, Aaron? Aaron closed his eyes. Loneliness, fear, and regret. Mr. Halden cleared his throat gently. We can finalize the transfer of rights now. Bernard, the property is legally yours. You may choose to sell it, live in it, or keep it locked. Bernard nodded. Ethel glanced at her husband. Bernard, what will we do now? He looked at the house, the memories, the pain, and the years. He thought of the nights Ethel cried silently. He thought of Aaron's cruelty. And his apology done, he said quietly, we will not live here anymore. This house holds too much sorrow. The lawyer asked, will you sell it then? Bernard shook his head. No, I will give it away. Everyone including Ethel and Aaron looked at him in shock. To whom? Mr. Halden asked. Bernard turned to Aaron. To him, but not as a gift. As a second chance. Aaron's breath caught. Bernard stepped closer, leaning on his cane. You threw us out without caring where we would go. I could throw you out too. But then I would become like you were. Aaron's throat tightened. I don't want revenge, Aaron, Bernard said. I want you to learn. He placed a hand, trembling but strong, on his son's shoulder. Keep the house. But remember, your parents are not your burden. They are your roots. Aaron broke down, tears streaming. He knelt in front of his parents and held their hands. I promise, he choked. I will never disrespect you again. Please, let me take care of you now. Ethel sobbed softly and hugged him. Bernard closed his eyes, letting the warmth of the moment melt years of pain. This was the justice he wanted. Not humiliation, not punishment, but transformation. Bernard and Ethel did not move back into the house. They chose to stay in the little room above the bakery, surrounded by kindness and peace. But Aaron visited every day. He brought groceries, medicines, warm blankets. He helped Bernard walk, helped Ethel sweep, and slowly rebuilt the trust he had shattered. Neighbors who once admired his confidence now admired his change. People whispered, look how he takes care of his parents now. He learned a hard lesson. He's not arrogant anymore. And for the first time in many years, Aaron felt proud for the right reasons. Bernard didn't seek revenge to destroy his son. He sought revenge to awaken him, and he succeeded. Sometimes the strongest revenge is not in hurting someone back, but in making them see the truth. Bernard won not through cruelty, but through wisdom, and in the end, a broken family became whole again.